We got 8 Lions in the top 101 from PFF. How about that?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's do this, everybody, on a Friday, March the 8th, and a Saturday, March the 9th. It's Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. My name is Matt Dery. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen or your first watch each and every day right here on Locked On Lions, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Coming up on the show today, 8 Detroit Lions are top 101 players from Pro Football Focus. Now, again, Sam Monson put the list together. We'll probably have Sam on the show next week. It's cool. Talk about a talent-laden roster. You talk about top 100 lists or top 101 lists. I like that PFF does 101. And you've got 8 Lions on there. That means we got a pretty good football team here. We'll tell you which 8 made the cut. Also, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, so highly respected. He's now the president of the NFL Players Association. We got to get into that today. Scott Mitchell is back in the news again. And Jonah Jackson, I think, is by Monday will no longer be a Detroit Lion. That's just a prediction that I'm making. All of that right here today on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen. Checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Dery Facebook fan page, on Threads at The Real Matt Dery, and also on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Shout out to our everydayers who are out there. We thank you and appreciate you that watch us or listen to us each and every day right here on this very podcast. All right, so didn't even know this was coming out, and you know me, I'm like Mr. PFF. I love Pro Football Focus. They are very good to us. Dave Selfaro, always hooking us up with guests. And I think their guys are very knowledgeable when it comes to the NFL, and we love having them on the show. So Pro Football Focus put out a list today. Sam Monson wrote this list, made this list, the top 101 players from 2023, all based on certainly this past season and everything else. Now, what's interesting about this list is the first guy I'm going to mention is not on the Lions, but I think is going to be on the Lions next year, this coming season. And that is at number 93, Darius Williams, the cornerback from Jacksonville. He's a free agent. Jaguars have let him go. He's got connections to the Lions going back to his Rams days with Brad Holmes. He's got connections to the Lions with Deshae Townsend, who was his cornerbacks coach with the Jags, and now is the Lions secondary coach. So if the Lions sign Darius Williams, and I think they're going to, that would be 9 players in the top 101. The first line, as you go down the list from 101 down, the first line that is that made the cut and is on this list is Brian Branch at number 84. I love this. I mean, talk about giving a rookie some love and some dap. Brian Branch makes the list. Sam writes, quote, Branch was among the Lions stable of talented rookies, showing that measurables and NFL combine times aren't everything. He was installed as the team's primary slot defender and earned impressive PFF grades across the board with 11 pass breakups to go with 3 interceptions. So Brian Branch comes in at number 84 on this list. How can you argue this? And actually, he's ahead of Denzel Ward of the Browns, who came in at number 85. And Denzel Ward is a highly regarded cornerback. Of course, the Browns have 3 cornerbacks on their team: Ward, Emerson, and Greg Newsome. And I think the Browns are going to trade Newsome, and I would think the Lions would call the Browns about that. Right at number 83, and I think this is low for him. I think he's better than the 83rd best player in the NFL, is Jared Goff. Sam writes, quote, with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson staying for another year, Goff continued to thrive for the Lions. He had a strange collapse for a run of division games midway through the season, but outside of that, he played at an all-pro level for the Lions. Again, I didn't go through the entire list today to figure out which quarterbacks are ahead of Jared Goff. Jalen Hurts is 72, whatever, but 83, I think Jared Goff deserved better than that. But again, made the list. So you got to like that. Coming in at number 79 is Sam Laporta, Lions tight end. Quote, the rookie Laporta was one of the stars of 2023 for the Lions offense. He had 10 touchdowns in the regular season and added another in the wild card round against the Rams. A late injury impacted his effectiveness, but he still notched more than 1,000 receiving yards. Again, Sam Laporta was a major find by Brad Holmes and the staff, getting him in the second round. All-Pro player, Pro Bowl player as a rookie, exceeded expectations, absolutely is a top 100 player. I love this. At number 78, so back-to-back Lions again on this list, Aleem McNeil. Sam writes, quote, Detroit's defensive front has been just Aiden Hutchinson at times, but Aleem McNeil really took an important step forward this year. He posted an 86.8 PFF grade for the season, notching 43 quarterback pressures and 20 defensive stops. Now, Christian Wilkins of the Dolphins, who's highly regarded and about to get major money in free agency, was at number 77, right ahead of McNeil. But again, credit to Brad Holmes and the scouting staff. That's another, third round pick that has come to fruition to make a top 100 list. So you love to see Aleem McNeil on this list. As I scroll down, you went to Neil Hunter for the Lions, 65 on this list. Matthew Stafford, 58 on the list. Should Matthew Stafford be in a 58 and Jared Goff at 84? I get that. L'Jarius Sneed, 56 on this list. Could be a future Lion. So you continue to scroll down, looking for Detroit Lions on this list, and you got to keep going. You got to keep going into the 30s. Nothing. You get down into the 20s. And our next Detroit Lion on this list is Frank Ragnow, coming in at number 25, top 25 player in the NFL for Frank Ragnow, the Lions all-everything center. Sam writes, quote, Ragnow was a bulldozer all season for the Lions offensive line. His 91.3 PFF run blocking grade was the best of any center in the game, and he performed some late season heroics by battling through injuries to anchor the middle of that line in critical situations to keep Detroit's season on track, end quote. Frank Ragnow is a stud. I think you could argue he's a top 20 player in the league. All right. But 25, you'll take that. I mean, he's ahead of Kyle Hamilton, Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, Fred Warner, Jalen Johnson. That's pretty good company to be in when we're talking about Frank Ragnow. So we still got 3 Lions left. This one was a little bit of a stunner for me, but very impressive. Aiden Hutchinson made the top 20. He was number 17. I think Frank Ragnow is better than Aiden Hutchinson if we're just going by lists like this. But a top 20 player and a 17 grade for Aiden Hutchinson is pretty cool. Quote, the second overall pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, Hutchinson has emerged as one of the best pass rushers in the game. He broke the 100 pressure barrier for the regular season and added another 20 across 3 postseason performances. End quote. Aiden Hutchinson at 17, ahead of Brandon Ayuk, Antoine Winfield, Deron Bland, Puka Nacua, George Kittle, Jesse Bates. That's pretty sweet. Number 15, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Top 15 player on this list, but didn't make the Pro Bowl. Lions wide receiver St. Brown continues to improve year over year and is one of the NFL's very, very best receivers in an offense that is cooking with gas under Ben Johnson. He averaged 2.59 yards per route run and dropped only 5 passes from 190 targets in 2023. How about Amon-Ra at number 15? All right, receivers ahead of him, CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill, and that's it. Again, not on the Pro Bowl. Didn't make the Pro Bowl. Nacua made the Pro Bowl. Mike Evans made the Pro Bowl. Amon-Ra coming in as the 3rd best receiver in the entire NFL. So when that contract comes up, and maybe if the Lions are even having those talks still, he's going to ask for major cash. That's like 26, 27, $28 million a year territory for Amon-Ra St. Brown. One Lion, cracked the top 10 on the PFF list. We will tell you who that is coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you could still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. Get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with that 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from this date at a first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA, available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. All right, welcome back to a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Indeed, your team every single day. Thanks to our everydayers that are out there. We appreciate you. All right, PFF top 100 list. We already told you. Top 101 list. We told you. Brian Branch, Jared Goff, Sam Laporta, Lee McNeil, Frank Ragnow, Aiden Hutchinson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown all cracked the list. But there's only one Lion that makes the top 10 in the NFL. I'm going to run down this list. Number 1, Myles Garrett of the Browns. Number 2, Tyreek Hill. Number 3, Micah Parsons. Number 4, Patty Mahomes. Number 5, Christian McCaffrey. Number 6, Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa? Number 7, Lamar Jackson. Good player, but come on. Number 8, Dexter Lawrence of the Giants. Number 9, CeeDee Lamb, who pimp slapped Kindle Vildor and Cam Sutton all night a few months ago. And at number 10, come on, we knew this was coming. Penei Sewell of your Detroit Lions. Quote, Sewell's 93.1 PFF run blocking grade is one of the best single season marks over the past 15 years at any position. He was a dominant force in the run game for the Lions and allowed just 1 sack over 17 starts. Highest ranked offensive lineman. So PFF believes Penei Sewell is the best offensive lineman in the NFL. And they have him as a top 10 player ahead of Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Trent Williams, Dak Prescott, and St. Brown, and Josh Allen, and Aiden Hutchinson. That is major props and kudos for one Penei Sewell. Can you imagine what the Lions are going to have to pay Penei Sewell when his contract is up? Wowzers. Impressive. 2 years for Penei, and already a top 10 NFL player. So, again, how can you not laud what Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and this brass has done? All right. We used to sit here and read these lists and talk about top 100 lists and go, oh, Darius Slay, the only Lion on the top 100 list. Or back in the day, oh, Barry Sanders or Herman Moore or Kevin Glover maybe cracks a list like this. Now, you look at this and you go, 8 Lions are top 101 players from Pro Football Focus. And it could be more if they go out and get Snead or Williams or Van Ginkel or any of these guys that make the list. Impressive. Got to have talent to win in this league. We could talk about the coaching. And yes, Dan Campbell's done a whale of a job. Certainly he's not perfect. All right. But you got to have talent to win. And the Lions have players. And Pro Football Focus and Sam Monson love their players to the tune of 8 making that top 101 list. That is pretty darn cool. You know what else is cool? Today, the National Football League Players Association announced that the Lions All-Pro special teamer and linebacker, captain, Jalen Reeves-Maybin has been elected as the new NFLPA president by the Board of Player Representatives. He gets a 2-year term that'll expire after the 2026 season. And Reeves-Maybin can be reelected after 2 years if he wants. NFLPA put out a tweet. Congratulations to Jalen Reeves-Maybin on being elected as president by the Board of Player Representatives. Jalen is currently a linebacker for the Lions and was a member of our executive committee for the past 2 seasons. Reeves-Maybin said, quote, "I'm honored by the trust that the board has shown in me, and I will work hard to be a voice and advocate for all players. It'll be my mission to continue to serve and unify our membership, and I look forward to inspiring more players to use their voice and advocating for the union and our game," end quote. Again, you want good people in that locker room. You want quality individuals, team players. Lions having now the president of the Players Association tells you all you need to know about just the culture that the Lions have, who these guys are in this room, what they mean to this city. And JRM, or Germ, as he's called by Dan Campbell, he's a Lion. 2 different stints with the team, re-signs for 2 years and $8 million, and now gets a bump up like this to be president of the Players Association. That's huge. That's really, really cool. Leaders, men of character. Got to have talent. Got to have players that are talented players, skill players. But a Jalen Reeves-Maybin that is a special teams maven, came in this year, played some linebacker, and did a whale of a job. Is so well deserving of this, and just a class act. So I love this. I think this is fantastic for JRM and for the Lions. So congratulations going out to the new president of the Players Association, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. So I think that is very, very cool. All right, you see on the rundown, and I mentioned this, I have not touched much of this because it's gone on now for weeks on end after the Barry Sanders documentary. Former Lions quarterback Scott Mitchell, who was always nice to me. All right, I covered the Lions a lot when Scott was here. Scott was on WDFN weekly with Stoney and Wojo. I think they had him on weekly. There's that infamous drop when the Lions were winning. I think it was 97. I'm trying to remember if it was 96 or 97. Scott Mitchell called in and he joked and he said, if anybody calls in and rips on the Lions, hang up on them immediately. Scott was a character. All right. He was not the most popular player in the locker room. There were times at the end when he was benched for Charlie Batch under Bobby Ross that it got pretty ugly. He was booed. He was booed right away when he played. And he never really lived up to the hype or expectations. He got 2 contracts with the Lions. There were some years that he and Herman Moore really clicked. There were some years he put up some big numbers. But if you recall, when Scott Mitchell played in the playoffs, whether it was at Philly, whether it was at Tampa, it just never happened for him. And then he ended up going other places, Cincinnati, Baltimore, other spots, but it never really worked out for Scott Mitchell. And now Scott Mitchell sat down with Dan Pompei from theathletic.com to kind of tell his side of the story after he kind of got bashed a little bit on that Barry Sanders documentary. Barry Sanders took some shots at him. Wayne Font said, we would have had Warren Moon or Joe Montana. And Scott got pissed, went on Facebook, and kind of just said he's tired of being the whipping boy. Well, in the athletic.com article, it kind of goes more in depth with Scott, talking about how he feels about his time with Detroit, and he wished he would have stayed in Miami and been Dan Marino's successor and all these things. But one thing that Scott Mitchell does in the athletic.com piece that he kind of did a little bit on Facebook was he trashes Barry Sanders. Scott says in the piece, quote, "It was challenging to play with Barry. A lot of those other running backs of the day weren't going to get you behind the chains very often, and we were behind the chains a lot with Barry. If you didn't run Barry the right way, it was hard, and it put everyone else in a bind." Ooh, jeez. Now, he did say, when we used Barry the way we did in Tom Moore's offense, I'd take him over anyone. But what made it great was our willingness to throw the football. Of course, there were tons of different offensive coordinators that Scott had to deal with. Sylvester Croom, Jim Zorn, Tom Moore, whatever. And there was one other line in here where Scott ripped on Barry. I got to find it here. He doesn't talk much to Sanders, who was unavailable for this story. Shocking. Hardly anyone does or ever did. That's Dan Pompei writing. Quote, he never said a word ever, Mitchell says. After games, he'd just duck out of the back door and it was okay. But I was not close to Barry at all. I don't know who he is. End quote. Scott currently is the color commentator for Utah football. He does weigh around 400 pounds. He's had some issues with his weight and his health. He's tried to lose the weight. Doesn't sound like Scott is doing all that well. He says he is. He's trying to lose weight. He's trying to forget his time in Detroit. But he's tired of being blamed. Go to theathletic.com for those of you that have a subscription to read it. It's a really good piece. Tired of being blamed for Lions' shortcomings, Scott Mitchell sets the record straight. Scott basically also says he doesn't talk to Lomas Brown and will not talk to Lomas Brown. Of course, Lomas was famous for saying that at one point he didn't block on purpose in order for Scott to get hit. He bashes on Wayne Fontes. He says he should never come to Detroit. Whatever. I'm not spending a ton of time on it, but there is some truth to what Scott says about Barry Sanders. All right. Barry Sanders is a Hall of Famer. One of the best Lions ever. I get that. But my point is this. The current edition of the Detroit Lions would never allow for that kind of chaos and just, a travesty that took place in the front office. Whether it was Bobby Ross, Wayne Fontes, or whomever, whether it was Chuck Schmidt, Matt Millen, whomever, the Lions right now do it the right way. All right, if Scott Mitchell had an issue with Barry Sanders, or players had issues with Scott, or Lomas didn't want to block for Scott, or guys didn't like Scott, or Scott didn't like guys, all right? And Lomas is quoted in here as kind of saying he was aloof and all these. That doesn't take place now. This group of Detroit Lions under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell all get along, all work together, and are all a true team. Those teams that Scott was on, he was on some good teams in the 90s, all right? Made playoff runs. But too much divisiveness, too much chaos. They were never going to win. And I think this article kind of proves that point for sure. Why I think Jonah Jackson on Monday is no longer going to be a Lion, I will get into that coming up next on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. All right, folks, looking to get some tickets to something, whether it's theater, music, comedy, sports, Game Time app is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for everything you need, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You want last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, they got it. Easy to find and buying tickets for every kind of event in your area, they got it. Views from your seat, yes, I love that. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, they've got it all at Game Time. It is the easiest and best app to get your tickets, all right? All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you even check out. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even an hour after the event starts. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, folks, so here we go. Monday at noon, big day. This is the start of the open tampering period, or whatever you want to call it, where teams can start talking to free agents. They can't announce official deals till Wednesday, but noon on Monday is when you're going to start hopping on your Twitter or X or whatever you call it. And you're just going to see close to an agreement, talking about terms, Lions in agreement with this player, Raiders, Bills, whomever. And so it's going to be the Wild West on Monday at noon. I think on Monday at some point, I think we're going to see somebody spend some money on Jonah Jackson. $15 million, $16 million, $17 million a year for the Lions left guard, maybe even more. And I don't think it's going to be the Lions. I think the Lions are probably working on a contract for Graham Glasgow to give him a raise, bring him back. But I don't think Jonah's going to stay. I don't think the Lions feel that he is worthy of that kind of money. And I think they can get somebody else in free agency, whether it's Mike Onwenu from the Patriots or somebody like that, for maybe less money. And maybe they feel that one of these other players is going to be an upgrade. Or they draft somebody at 29. We gave you a bunch of names the other day of offensive linemen that could be there at 29 that the Lions would be interested in. They've talked to the kid from BYU. They like the kid from Kansas State, BB. There's options. But I just, there was a prediction today in USA Today that the Washington Commanders were going to spend about $17 million a year on a Jonah Jackson. And sometimes, look, the Lions have said it. They want to keep their own guys. I think Brad Holmes would love to keep Jonah Jackson. Remember this, though. Holmes did not draft him. Bob Quinn did. And I think Jonah's going to go. And I think he's going to get overpaid. Like him as a player, kind of has gone downhill the last couple of years. Not too downhill, but maybe he's regressed a little bit. And I get a sense that when we get closer to Monday, maybe Monday afternoon, we're going to hear about a team spending an exorbitant amount of cash on a guy like Jonah Jackson. So we'll see. Kevin Dotson just got 3 years and $48 million from the Rams to stay. And those are pretty equivalent players right there, Kevin Dotson and Jonah Jackson. All right, we'll talk to everybody Monday. Should be a frenzy, a free agency frenzy on Monday. We will get to all of that on Monday's edition of Locked On Lions. Another great week here in the books. Thanks for making this your first listen, everybody. Have a great weekend. Let's do this.